Hey guys, my name's Albert and welcome to our Lead the Charge video series. Join me as I chat to industry experts within the EV sector as we cover topics such as fleet, carbon footprint and charging. Now sit back, relax, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have learned at least one thing that you can take away. Thank you, Yann, for joining us on our Lead the Charge interviews. If you could just kick off by just sharing a little bit about your background, a little bit about Char.gy, how you ended up in Char.gy and how you ended up in the EV world.
Yeah, so been with Char.gy since, October last year. So relatively new, actually very new to the industry and very new to Char.gy itself. My experience has been mostly based in local government and national government sales of infrastructure and services. So there's a really good fit here because over the next 2 years, the government is deploying £340 million worth of grants, which will be more than matched by private investment, of which we're one of those investors as well, to deliver infrastructure that will probably hit numbers like 500,000 charge points.
Wow.
So what that means is there'll be ubiquitous charging for everybody who wants to have an EV. And my experience has been how to understand how government and industry work together to deliver this, what will be a critical infrastructure to deliver that EV charging experience.
And then in terms of Char.gy, it was formed in 2016, is that right?
Yeah.
So for on-street charging solutions.
Actually, the story's kind of interesting. So our founder, Richard Stobart, always an inventor, always an entrepreneur, had and has a real desire to save the planet. He's got a big family and realized the first step in something he can do of significance was having an EV car, because then he can draw less resources, less fossil fuel, cleaner air. It just made sense. So he bought a car, but hadn't really thought about the charging solution. Didn't have a driveway, and he was presented with the problem of his hybrid at the time had a 8-mile range on electric, and his nearest charging point was a round trip of 6 miles. So he'd go there and back and effectively put 2 miles on
Yeah.
So and he went, "This is ridiculous." But there's a charging capability on my street. It's called a lamppost. So he created the very first, literally on his kitchen table, charge point that be connected to a lamppost, which is the cheapest and easiest charging point. So he spent all of that time proving it and then going through the huge amount of red tape, which is necessary for safety and security reasons, to get that charge point approved. So at the core of our capability is how do we deliver charging to the user at home when they don't have a driveway. This is just one of the solutions we have. We have this ability to take power straight off a lamppost or straight off the feed within a street. Nice and simple, nice and cheap, and gives you an at-home experience if you don't have a driveway at home.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, and that's kind of one of the main reasons why I kind of wanted to get you on, because that's the biggest question I hear. Well, I don't have a driveway, don't have access to off-street parking. And I just said, like, lampposts are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
If we'll just jump back into those on the street, on street charging in just a second, but just on a personal perspective, do you own an electric vehicle yourself?
Yeah. I've had one for just over a year, and luckily I do have a driveway. And even if I didn't, I wouldn't go back now. It's just such an amazing experience. It does require a bit of change of thinking. So we drive around with I had a very big diesel car before. And so my driving experience was you drive around until you're getting towards empty and then desperately find a fill-up station to fill up to then throw in 120 quid's worth of fuel. The entire experience changes when you can charge near home, because I finish my journeys at home, plug the car in, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, I've got a full tank. So every drive I'm taking starts with a full tank. It's amazing. I'm now not worrying about where to fill up during the day. All I need to do is get back home, and then my tank's full again. It's a great experience.
It's funny as well, because I say to people about the experience, and one of the first things people say is it's a mindset change. It's a mind, and it's 100% that, because same thing with me. I used to get to 40 miles in my petrol, and I'd be like, it's fine, and you'd wait till you're empty, and then 40 miles in my electric, I'm like, okay, when I get home, I'll charge it, or like, it's a completely mind shift change. And you get home and you wake up, as you said, you have a full tank every time, and it's 100%. So in terms of you say you're in an EV, you wouldn't go back. What motivated you in the first place to get into an EV? What was your motivation?
So I think it's the same as Richard's. It was twofold. I've got a daughter who is very much about making the environment we live in better than she's found it. And so it's very hard to go against that very sensible sentiment. So part of it was trying to do a better thing, but also part of it is a bit. It's the reason we all buy cars. They were just cooler.
Yeah,
I'm lucky enough to get a Tesla. It outpaces a Porsche, and I can still take four people in it and a boot full of luggage. It's got all the gadgets on it, parking sensors, auto drive. So it's better technology. It goes faster. It looks really cool as well. So it fits both of that personal purpose, which is I want something that I can get emotionally attached to, but also a grander purpose of I am actually doing something to
yeah,
improve our environment.
yeah, 100%. I mean, Teslas are great cars. I mean, I've got a Tesla myself as well, and they're just, as you said, they're just fun to drive. It's a fun
They are,
experience.
yeah,
You know,
amazing.
I've never had anyone in it and say to me, "Oh, that was rubbish." No,
That was
everyone's like,
that
"Wow,
was
that was."
everybody comments on it, don't they? They go, "Wow,
Yeah,
that was an amazing experience." I'm not
yeah.
sure they'd do that if you just bought an ordinary petrol car anymore.
No, 100%. Yeah, exactly that. So coming back to your, on-street parking solutions. I mean, there's so many charging companies out there, so many, and there's not loads and loads focusing on what you're doing. There's loads of these. Oh, we deliver this amount of charge, this amount of charge, and all these numbers, which there's not a lot of education around it. But in terms of your model, so you touched on it briefly, but so Char.gy's solution, how does that benefit people who don't have driveways, who can't normally charge at home and have that worry?
The answer is you start with a why. Why are we doing this? So we're doing this to change the minds of as many people as possible that EV charging is for them. It's possible. It's not a risk. So we're trying to make charging available to as many people as possible. So the most good for the most people. So how do we do that? Well, we look for a solution that we can put on every street really quickly, which has got nothing. I haven't mentioned technologies yet, but or speeds. It's irrelevant. But if I can get something to an home charging experience that me and you enjoy, which is I go to sleep and I wake up in the morning with a full tank. Even if I haven't got a driveway, if I've got something that's near my house, like a 5-minute walk, I can give them that experience. With that
Yeah,
experience, they're more likely to change. Now I can put that experience as a charge point in every single street on a town, and I can do it really quickly. So
yeah,
everybody can experience that journey really quickly, whether you are in a highly dense area in the middle of the city or whether you're in a rural village. I can give you that experience within a month or within weeks if I've already got permissions for it. So that will encourage more people to take advantage of this opportunity to change. So that's what we provide. We provide a solution that gets to more people more quickly at the lowest price point.
so you've got lots of chargers in Southwark, I believe. So
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
quite a lot of chargers in Southwark. So how have you seen the EV adoption rate with your solution that you've already offered, that you're offering? How have you seen the adoption rate in those areas change with people using the solution that you offer?
Well, yeah, you, it's really easy to pick up the fact that if you put chargers in places, people feel confident. I think, and then they move to EVs. I think what's been surprising for us in Southwark, and I think we'll find this as we get more and more charge points out on the streets, is the type of people that now adopt EVs. So to begin with, it was the people that could afford Teslas, right? So it was relatively wealthy people who got them or got them through their through their companies, and it wasn't the people who necessarily depend on their cars, as like my wife's hairdresser, my best friend who's a carpenter. It wasn't those kind of people that were buying it. However, when we look at Southwark, it is those people who are now starting to buy it. So we're starting to see people now. The price of EV cars is coming down, and this especially plays really well into your business. As you get the price point down to a lower point where people can afford them, as if they were buying a combustion engine, as long as the charge points are near them, they rapidly switch. So
Yeah.
real kick up in adoption. Now the price point is coming down, and we're seeing every day new news from the OEMs about brand new car prices coming down. You know, that price point of £20,000 for a car is getting very close to, and I think within the next 6 months we'll see it below that for entry level EVs. And you'll probably know about this more than I do, what the second hand prices for EVs are. I think that the thing that's stopping it isn't going to be access to EV charging points. It is kind of a negative theme in press about
Yeah.
EV, I don't know, bursting into flames, or EVs, the batteries dying after 70,000 miles. All of these are rubbish in terms of claims, but they make great clickbait.
Yeah.
So
100%.
if we can have situations like this where better education is coming to the marketplace, where experts get to talk about the reality of these things, I think that bad news will disappear and the new news will take over.
It's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of the stuff that's out there is either incredibly old, so EVs can only drive 60 miles, or hybrids have only got 8 mile range. It's just like, yeah, that was true once upon a time. It's no longer true. And then, we've started this myth busting series that we release every Monday to try and conquer some of those myths, right? Like EVs just decide they're going to set on fire, or they're ridiculously expensive. Like the price of EVs have come down dramatically. Yeah, I remember when I used to work for Tesla, and people used to come and say, "Oh, EVs will never be cheaper than this." It's just like, look where we are now. Look how far we've come, and EVs are massively coming down. People are saying, "Oh, then it's never gonna catch on." Even people recently, EVs are never gonna catch on. I'm thinking, I don't know what you're reading, but they've already caught on.
It's here already.
It's here already, 100%. So, in terms of like range anxiety, is a massive thing. It's a massive buzzword. Oh, range anxiety this, range anxiety that. So, in terms of what you guys do, how do you think that's impacted things like range anxiety and people,
So
worrying about charging?
I don't think we had to deal with range anxiety because the marketplace coming that we're dealing with now is moved on to a different anxiety. Everybody's got an anxiety. So it's now charging anxiety because range has really been dealt with. Average range for most cars is like 250 to 300-ish now. And the average journey length is like 11 miles. So it doesn't matter where you stop, you're not going to burn through, unless you're going to go do long haul deliveries, you're never going to burn through that 280 miles that you've topped up with overnight. So
Yeah.
range anxiety kind of disappears. Now it's where can I charge? And as I've said, that in the next 2 years, with the investment that the government's made in the grants and the investment that's coming from private sector, you're going to see anywhere between 350 and 700,000 charge points on streets across the entire country. That disappears as well then. So what's the next barrier? I'm not sure what one is. The cars are better, they go further, they take less maintenance. The charging experience, I think, is better. I don't have to stand outside getting my hands covered with diesel anymore. I just go to sleep, and the next morning it's filled up. So I think once we've addressed the charge anxiety problem, which will go away once this program over the next 18 months, 2 years is done, then I think we'll just see this explode. The last bit in the puzzle that you're talking about, Albert, which is resale value and also first new value for EVs. But as you just said, that price is coming down and down and down and down. The latest headline I saw this morning was Tesla is finished because they can't produce cars as cheaply as BYD. That shows you the competitive pressure on pricing within the electric
Yeah.
market.
Yeah. And we hear all sorts of headlines, right? I'm not sure I can agree with that. Tesla's such a great product. However, in terms of, I hear people say exactly what you just said, like about the charging. You can go to sleep and wake up. People are like, oh, you have to waste so much time charging. Actually, there are rapid chargers if you need to charge quickly, but you're not wasting time when you're charging your car overnight. You pull up, you plug it in, you wake up in the morning. Like, what time have you actually wasted? So it's funny when you hear people say things like that. But in terms of what role do you think that the charging, like lamppost charging that you guys offer, has to play in terms of the charging solutions that are out there? Like, how critical do you think this is? Because all we hear is people saying, "Oh, I want to be able to charge my car fast," and here and there and there. I think people sometimes neglect this area in terms of just the overnight charging.
It's maybe worth going through an example in terms of charging anywhere and charging speeds. So First of all, lampposts are just a way you can get the power that we need. So we specialize in on-street solutions. So it may be a lamppost, might be a bollard, could be a cluster of bollards, could be double head. It could be any method in order to get that first and most important charge point within a street. So we make it accessible really quickly. But let's talk about an example that will kind of bring this into sharp focus. The average journey, I said to you, was in London, it's about 3 miles average journey. Outside of London, the longest average journey I could find was in Greater Manchester, I think, where the average journey was 11 miles. All right, so go to a service, on average, 11 miles, come back again, so 22 miles. If you're driving 11 miles, you're going somewhere to do something, aren't you? You're going to a gym, or you're going to do some shopping, see the doctor. You can be there a couple of hours. If you take a standard on-street charging opportunity, like a bollard or a low-speed charger, something that you would charge at home, you will put in 30 to 38 miles of charge an hour. So you're there for a couple of hours because it's taken you a little time to drive there. So you finish charging and you've got 70 odd miles, but you've only gone 11. So every single time, wherever you're stopping, as long as you've got ubiquitous charging, you're always coming out ahead, always.
Yeah, such a good point. I didn't even think about that. Like, I didn't think about that at all. Because when I used to sell the cars, people would say, how can I get one of those? They'd look at the supercharger, but how can I get one of those at home? And I used to say, you'd never need one of those at your house. Like, one, it's massively expensive. Two, you're not going to get permission from the national grid anyway to have that sort of power coming into your home. And three, you don't need it. Like, unless you're sleeping for half an hour and you spend half an hour at home every day, you're never going to need that sort of charging solution at home. So these slower charging solutions for home charging are vitally important still, just as important as the fast charging.
I had a pickup I went on holiday a couple of weeks ago, a month ago. Got picked up at Heathrow by somebody driving a new Kia EV, beautiful car. And I asked him the same question, do you always do rapid charging? He said, no, I've done that for ages. So what do you do? He said, well, relatively all my journeys in London are like 5 or 6 miles. And then I come back again. So I occasionally have to do a rapid that might top me up. But usually I take a break for an hour for lunch, and I just top up there. And that gives me another 70 miles worth of range, which is another half dozen trips. It's like, okay. Yeah. Well, it is that mindset change, Albert, that people aren't getting. You don't need to have when we have petrol cars, you didn't go, right, I've done a journey, I better fill up to make sure I've got a full tank again. That's just madness. It comes from the same place as when petrol cars started being mass produced in the States. And it's the reason why when you had one of those early petrol cars, you also had canisters of petrol you carry around with you, because there was just a handful of garages. Yeah, handful of cars, handful of garages. Range anxiety was somewhat alleviated, but because you could put another charge with you. So I get it. Old thinking, not enough charging points all over the place. Maybe some rapids. So we got into rapid thinking. But now with these on-street charging solutions, it'll be everywhere. Be absolutely everywhere. You'll be able to go to a car park. You'll have charging. You'll go to to the gym. It'll have a charging point. You go to Sainsbury's. It'll have a charging point. Wherever you stop, you have the opportunity to top up if you want to. And by the way, as long as you're not charging at all, at the end of the day, you're coming back home and you're having a sleep. Fill your car up completely. Well done. And that's the cheapest you can do that, by the way, Albert. Charging at home or near home, it's the cheapest you're ever going to be able to charge for.
Yeah. And people don't understand that either. They're like, it's going to cost me a fortune to charge my electric at home. And so actually you can get some really cheap overnight tariffs. It's much cheaper than at the moment. So my car's actually in the body shop. It had a little bit of a dink, and they've given me a first time I've driven a petrol car in 3 years. And it's expensive. I put a LinkedIn post moaning about it. It's expensive. I'm spending a lot of money on fuel. It's the first time I've had to do that in years. It's just like, I don't know where it come from, where people are saying electric vehicles are so expensive to run, or it's easier to use fuel. It's more convenient. It's not been more convenient for me over this past 3 weeks at all.
You will experience, and there is, you can definitely find cases where those rapids and ultra rapids, as you've just said, they cost an awful lot of money to put in place. Therefore, they only get that payment back by charging tariffs which are more, which I get, that's just basic economics. So that can become expensive. However, they're providing convenience. If you really
Yeah.
need to extend your trip and you want to do that really quickly so you don't have a longer journey, then definitely go for a rapid. Top it up, pay the premium, suck it up, and then move on. But outside of those edge cases, if you're traveling around commuting, just wait till you get home, top up. Wait until you get into
Yeah.
work. Government's just released some additional funding now for schools and for places at work to get charges put in. There we go. So at either end of your journey, have a relatively low speed trickle charge over the day when you're there. You're topped up. Doesn't cost you anything. It costs you a small amount of money.
Yeah, and yeah, that's another conversation I've had with colleagues and friends and stuff. So if you don't have a charging solution at home and you've got one at work, it's in theory it's the same thing because you're sitting at work in the office for 8 hours and you leave with a full charge. There are solutions out there. I think people just don't want to open their eyes and see some of those solutions. But I read that you guys have like a pretty impressive 99.2% uptime on your chargers. So what challenges have you encountered with maintaining such a high? I mean, that's impressive.
Well,
99.2%.
you say it's impressive. I think if we're honest with ourselves, that's where we all need to be in the industry.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
the thing that will make people confident about being able to charge is knowing that the chargers will be working. So you remember when we had the petrol crisis? Was it last year in COVID, where some of the petrol stations ran out of petrol, and then everybody panicked straight away. This is going to be the same when we've all got EVs. The reliability of those charge points is what gives us confidence to get an EV.
Yeah.
So 99% is the bare minimum for, I think, availability and reliability for us as consumers to have confidence it's going to be there. So the second part of the question was, how did we get there? It was bloody hard work because these are devices, whilst they do have off-the-shelf components, weren't necessarily built in a way that allows you to build them for high reliability. So it's taken us this long to trace down literally every single component, look at their mean time between failures, see where they may be failing, take them out before failure happens to ensure that we have a higher and higher and higher availability. We're at 99.3 or 99.4 at the moment. And then still drilling down that last 0.6% to see whether we can get up to 100%.
Yeah, it's incredible because, I mean, there are, as you said, it should be the standard, but unfortunately it's not. There's a lot out there that, that just sadly turn up and some of them haven't been working. And that's the great thing about, networks like the supercharger network. You know exactly how many are working and all that kind of stuff. And then there's some networks, won't name names, but you turn up and it's just
zombies.
It's not working.
We call them zombie charge points, which they're there. The lights seem to be on, but there's no life in them. You're not going to be able to charge in them. Now, so another thing that we're trying to push to the rest of the charge point operators is this idea of kind of pinging for health checks. So we consider a charge point down if it's been out of range for like 20 minutes. That now escalates to us as a high level fault, and we're straight on it, bringing it back up again. But we are pinging it every 2 minutes just to make sure it's there.
Wow.
To make sure it's healthy. Now all right, it costs us more because we're using mobile data to send and receive those messages. But in terms of confidence for our users, we know when a charge point's gone off. We can put that on our map that they've got on their application. They can see these ones aren't available. So it's really quick in being able to show people what's available, what's not available, what's being used, what's not being used. So we're trying to make it a really good experience for our users as well. And I think for all of the CPOs that are charge point operators, that's what I mean, CPOs. I think they're all recognizing now that this is less about the technology, more about the driver experience and the confidence we give them. And if we can get into that mindset, then I think we'll even be even faster in terms of adoption. Make it an easy experience for the drivers. As you said, you've got a Tesla. When you drive up to a supercharger, you know it's going to work. It's easy to operate. You just plug your car in, walk away, job done. On a map, in your car. It shows how many bays are available and which ones are working. All of this goes to driver experience. Not once do they tell you the power size, or you're not drawn to it because of the technical functions. You just want a nice, simple experience. And that's where we're going as an industry.
And experience is key, right? And that's in any walk of life. I mean, you look at anything and people want to see what the experience is like. You go to book a hotel, people will check on Trustpilot. They want to know what the experience is like. You know, so no matter what area you're looking at, and it's the same for charging, if the experience is good and it's fun and you're not standing outside having to punch in digits, scan QR codes, and it might be wet, raining, and that is when it can become unattractive. That's when it can be like, that's a lot of faff, that's a lot of aggro. You know, the experience is definitely key. So if we're looking at like the broader EV charging landscape, you know, everything that's happening in the UK, what do you think is like the most significant opportunity for Char.gy going forward?
I think that the biggest opportunity within the industry, and it will be one where companies realize that working together makes a lot of sense. So if we just take the charging experience, I think what we'll start to see is the business models and the charging experience for rapids is very different from on the street. The different lifestyle choices, different costs for investment and return. But I do think that there is a significant overlap when we look at the complete lifestyle of individuals and how they will take journeys going forward. So I can see there being much stronger partnership between these two specialist areas. And there may be even some companies that try and do both, although that's probably going to be quite challenging. So definitely we'll start to see some more strategic partnerships emerge. I think we will also start to see CPOs concentrating on that experience a lot more, rather than trying to convince people that a different technology or a different speed or a different makes sense. It will be about what's the holistic approach to making the driver feel confident. And so I think that will be the biggest change that we'll see, moving from technology into the consumer experience or the driver experience. The biggest opportunity, not just for Char.gy, but for the whole of all drivers that are interested in EVs, will be this deployment over the next 2 years. Well over 500,000 charge points will be deployed at homes, near homes, in workplaces. That's going to change our whole landscape. And as you were saying earlier on, this will change our thinking about what charging means. So it'll be a very different marketplace that we'll see in 2 years' time than now, because of that huge opportunity the government's given us. Yeah,
that's awesome. And you know what, it's really interesting to hear from the other side, because I've had some conversations with people when it comes to DC charging companies and fast charging solutions. It's awesome to hear about the everyday, because it's a big concern for people. So I really appreciate it. It's been really, really insightful. If I could just leave you one more question. If someone's considering, they're currently in a combustion engine vehicle and they're considering moving to an EV, what would be your advice?
So the cars themselves are fantastic, as we both said. Great driving experience. It's that last anxiety. So it is worth understanding, if you can't park at home, where that charging experience for you will mostly center around. If it's going to be rapids, that's going to get quite inconvenient and quite expensive. So every council, literally every council, has been given millions of pounds to deploy these on-street charging experiences over the next 2 years. It is possible to get information from those councils to find out whether your street will benefit from it. And if it does, that means you'll have a charging point near you coming soon, which will make the entire experience the one that me and you experience, which is near at home, which is fantastic, isn't it? Go to sleep, wake up with a full tank. So get involved by understanding what your council's about to do, because they're all getting the money to go and do this. And maybe even write a letter to say, I want it in my street. I've spoken to 6 councils in the last 7 days and asked them what makes them decide where charge points go. And they listen to the residents. If they're getting letters, if they're getting correspondence, and they're getting a lot of them in a particular area, then those areas get prioritized. So literally, you do have the power to make this happen near you. That's
awesome. I really appreciate it, Yann. Thanks for joining us. It's been, as I said, it's been really insightful. So thank you very much.
Love the opportunity to speak to you, Albert. Thank you.